Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, so the whole world is going electric with cars, right? And for a country like Bangladesh, this is a huge moment. So today, we're doing more than just talking about cool new tech. We're actually going to build a strategic evidence pack, a real playbook, to figure out how Bangladesh can use this EV revolution to get cleaner air and, honestly, a much stronger economy.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the global policy playbook. See what's actually worked elsewhere. Then we'll dive into the big one, building a charging network. After that, we'll check out what the top brands are doing to win. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a strategy that makes sense for Bangladesh.
And really, it all comes down to this one big question. It's not a matter of if Bangladesh should go electric anymore. That ship has sailed. The real question is how. Getting the strategy right is absolutely crucial if we want to see the benefits, like, being able to breathe cleaner air and not being so dependent on importing expensive fossil fuels.
All right, first things first. Let's look at the global policy playbook. The good news is we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Countries like Norway and even India have basically written the manual on how to get an EV market off the ground. So what are the best tools we can pull from their toolbox?
When you look at the strategies that actually work, they pretty much all use a two-pronged attack. On one hand, you've got the fiscal incentives. This is the stuff that hits you right in the wallet. Tax credits, rebates, things that make that initial price tag a lot less scary. But then, on the other hand, you have the non-fiscal perks. These are the things that just make life easier, like getting to use the bus lane or grabbing free parking. It's about making EV ownership not just cheaper, but genuinely better.
And what's really fascinating is that there's no single magic bullet. Every country kind of tailors it. Take Norway, the absolute global leader. They went all in, basically getting rid of the big sales tax, the VAT, on electric cars, making them way cheaper for regular people. The UK? They were clever. They targeted company cars with big tax breaks, which created this awesome pipeline of secondhand EVs hitting the market a few years later. And then you've got India, who's being super pragmatic, focusing on electrifying commercial fleets first to get the biggest environmental bang for their buck, fast.
Now, this is a big one, especially in places like the UK. The ZEV mandate. ZEV stands for Zero Emission Vehicle. In this policy, it completely flips the script. Instead of just trying to convince you and me to buy an EV, it puts the pressure on the car makers themselves. It says, hey, a certain percentage of the cars you sell must be electric, and that number is going up every year. It's a really powerful way to force the supply side of the equation.
Okay, so you can have the best policies in the world, the best incentives, but if people are worried they can't charge their car, it's all for nothing, right? So that brings us to our second big piece of the puzzle, building the charging network. This is a huge undertaking, and pretty much everywhere you look, the answer seems to be the same: public-private partnerships.
So, what exactly is a PPP? It sounds kind of corporate, but the idea is actually super simple. It's a team-up. The government plays its part by setting the rules and getting rid of red tape, and the private sector comes in with the cash, the tech, and the know-how to actually get the chargers built and keep them running.
And it's not just a free-for-all. Building out this network follows a pretty logical path. You start with the planning phase, right? Figuring out where the heck to even put the chargers. Then comes the money part, funding the CapEx, which is just a fancy term for the upfront cost of all the hardware. After that, it's about actually getting them in the ground and hooked up to the grid. And you can't forget the last step, a solid plan for operating and maintaining them. Because a broken charger is a useless charger.
And just like with policy, there are different flavors of these partnerships. You have to pick the right tool for the job. For instance, you could have a model led by the utility companies themselves that's great for making sure the grid doesn't get overloaded. Or you could have a model led by charge point operators, or CPOs. These are private companies that compete with each other, which usually sparks a lot of innovation. Or the government could step in and help fund the initial setup just to get the ball rolling and make it less risky for private players to jump in.
Okay, so we have policies to encourage people to buy, and we have a plan for chargers. So how do the car companies themselves actually convince us to pick their car? Let's take a look at the strategies of three absolute giants who are pretty much writing the rules for the EV game right now. Let's start with the obvious one, Tesla. Their entire playbook is built on one word: control. They control everything. They build the batteries in their own gigafactories, they write the software, they sell the cars directly to you, and they own the charging network. By controlling that whole ecosystem, they deliver this incredibly smooth, high-end experience that people absolutely love and are willing to pay a lot for. And then you've got BYD coming out of China, and their game is totally different. It's all about scale and cost. See, they started out as a battery company, so they have this insane advantage when it comes to the most expensive part of the car. They use that to just pump out a huge range of affordable EVs, everything from little city cars all the way up to electric buses. And now they're taking that model and just pushing it out aggressively all over the globe.
I mean, this quote really says it all. Calling it the Great Godzilla, it just perfectly captures the sheer scale of what's happening. We're talking about a giant industrial machine that is just getting started, and it's completely changing the car industry as we know it. And then there's a legacy player like Mercedes-Benz. Look, they know they're not going to outproduce BYD or maybe even out-tech Tesla in the same way. So what do? They double down on what makes them Mercedes. They're electrifying their core promise of luxury and quality, and they're adding a huge dose of sustainability to it. Their whole Ambition 2039 thing is about the high end, but also about things like recycling over 96% of battery materials and making sure everything is sourced responsibly. They're selling a luxury electric experience.
All right, so we've looked at global policies, we've looked at charging networks, we've looked at how the big brands compete. Now for the most important part. Let's bring it all back home. How can Bangladesh take all these lessons and build a strategy that actually works on the ground for its own unique situation?
And we have to be real here, right? We have to start by looking at the challenges head-on. In Bangladesh, the car market is all about affordable used gasoline cars. The upfront cost of a new EV is a huge barrier, and high tariffs on batteries don't help. We're talking less than 100 public chargers for the entire country. No wonder people have range anxiety. And all of this is happening while the country is spending a fortune importing fossil fuels. It's a tough spot.
So putting all the evidence together, a smart, focused 5-point strategy starts to take shape. Number 1, forget about cars for a second and focus on 2- and 3-wheelers first. That's the real heart of transportation in the cities. Number 2, mandate the government and commercial fleets go electric. Number 3, hit that cost problem directly. Revise the battery tariffs and offer some smart, time-boxed rebates. 4, don't try to build chargers everywhere. Be strategic. Start with charging depots for those fleets and along major highways. And finally, number 5, build consumer confidence by creating clear national standards for safety.
You see the pattern here, right? The key word is focus. This isn't about trying to boil the ocean and build a perfect system for everyone overnight. It's about targeting the areas where you can have the biggest impact, right now. Going after commercial fleets and 2-wheelers, well, that creates a predictable demand for charging. It makes it easier to justify building that infrastructure in specific places. And it gives you the absolute biggest bang for your buck when it comes to cutting emissions and saving money on fuel imports. It's about creating a domino effect.
And so that leaves us with this final, really critical thought. All the evidence seems to point in one direction, that a targeted, fleet-first approach isn't just a path for Bangladesh. It's probably the fastest path to cleaner air and better energy security. Really, the question has changed. It's not if Bangladesh will join the EV revolution. It's about how it's going to choose to lead it.